Welcome to Market Makers, the podcast where operations at the intersection of real estate, prop tech, SaaS, and modern go-to-market strategy can talk shop. Market Makers features real, unfiltered conversations, the wins, the misses, the hard-earned lessons behind building and scaling real businesses. Today's guest is Malte Kramer, CEO of Luxury Presence, where we talk digital transformation and AI. What works, what fails, and what most companies get wrong. Talk is cheap, execution wins. Let's get into it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Market Makers podcast today, where we're going to talk about digital transformation and AI, what works, what fails, and what companies get wrong. In this episode, we have Malte Kramer. Welcome, Malte.
Hi, Lauren. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here. So what we're going to talk about this episode is we're really going to unpack the challenges that are facing business leaders today on how to execute AI and as well as digital transformation in a way that actually works. We know that like 88% of them fail. So we're going to talk about our learnings, what we've done, what Malte has done, what has really worked and moved the needle, and then also what to avoid. Let's dig in today.
Let's kick it off. The three of us have various experiences with digital transformation. And typically, one of the more exciting parts of digital transformation, I think, are talking about it and shouting it from the rooftops by way of press release. But I think a lot of interesting aspects are kept out of the press release. And I'm curious, from your perspective, Malte, what does real digital transformation actually look like internally versus what's communicated in a press release?
Yeah, there's obviously a huge gap between the two. The internal reality is way more messy than what you read online. And press releases in particular, I don't think give an accurate picture of AI adoption at all. There's an incentive, obviously, for companies to communicate that they're very AI forward because investors like to see it and people understand that it is at this point expected. So it's hard to tell from the outside looking in if a company is doing well on that front. I would say the most common misconception that people have about driving AI adoption is that it's this silver bullet that once you install it, it just works. And the reality is very different. We have implemented at this point dozens of different AI platforms. We probably have hundreds of AI agents running internally in the company now. In the last 30 days, we had over 70,000 work sessions that were completed by AI internally. And we can get into what the AI is doing for us. So, it seems like a great success story, but getting there, we've had so many failures. We've had so many things that didn't work. Every single AI agent didn't start as a success, but had to be iterated on over, weeks, in some cases months, to get to the level of performance that is needed. And so I think it's much more interesting to talk about what actually didn't work or what it took to get to successful AI adoption than it is to just, talk about the polished end product. So yeah, happy to get into that because I agree it's not being talked about as much in the press releases.
So let's get into that a little bit deeper because everybody thinks also with AI, when you lead a digital transformation, for example, once you do it and the product launches, you're done. And that is not the case. Like they're like, yay, we're done. We've done it. And I'm like, this never stops. This keeps going. You're going to continue to innovate for the customer and so forth. So let's kind of talk about, just give us an example of one thing that you thought was the most brilliant idea that you were going to enable, that you were excited about at Luxury Presence from an AI standpoint. And you're like, this is going to be great. This is going to tip the scale. And then you're like, yeah, not as easy as I thought it was going to be, or it required a lot more work than you originally expected.
Yeah, I'll give you two examples, one on the product side and one internally. So on the product side, we have an AI lead nurturing tool. It texts the leads that our customers are getting, holds a conversation, qualifies them, and then does a warm handoff when they're qualified. And we launched this product over 18 months ago. And when we initially launched it, I thought, this will work. I saw the text transcripts. It was really impressive. And then over time, it became clear that the work here will really never be done. There's always improvements we can make. There are so many edge cases, things that people ask that you didn't expect up front that you need to account for. And so this has become a successful product over time, but it took way longer. I would have thought it would take us a couple months to fine tune this, and it's really taken over a year. So this is an example of something that is just really never done. And we still now are finding every month, we're finding new things that we can tweak about specific wordings. That conversion rate is a little bit higher when you say hey instead of hi. And unless you have someone constantly monitoring the prompts, constantly running evals, you're just not going to get it to that level of quality. So that's an example on the product side. On the internal side, I'll give you a recent example. We built something called Opportunity Bot internally. It looks through Salesforce and finds missed opportunities for the sales team and then puts them in Slack where they are every day. And I thought this is going to be great. They're going to have all the opportunities that they've missed right in front of them. And it turns out it just created a bunch of noise. The sales reps were overwhelmed. They actually didn't act on many of these opportunities. And we
Oh,
had to
wow.
completely rethink, how do we actually deliver these insights in a way where our employees can do something with them? And so the original idea, I still think was correct, but the execution and where we delivered the insights wasn't. And I have countless other examples like this. I think that is the really hard part about AI transformation is you have to actually implement it to see what works and what breaks, and you cannot predict it upfront. And so, yeah, 2 examples here for you.
I think what also like you're really successful at is because you have your customers beta certain things. So you let us play and you let us try and break it. And I have the AI agent, so I adopted, that for us. But you're open to feedback and you move fast on what those iterations are before you release that feature, which I really, really like. Like you run an MVP, but then you dial it back to where it needs to be. And I think that's huge because some people take customer input and they're like, yeah, 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 that's nice to have, but you actually execute on what that is to improve the product, which I think is great.
Yeah, we run obviously a beta program on the customer side. We've also learned to run it internally. So before we roll something out to the entire go-to-market org and train everyone, we have small groups of early adopters from the various teams who give us feedback on the internal tools and the AI agents to, again, battle test them before we put it in the hands of everyone. And so I highly recommend having just an ongoing beta, both on the product and internal side.
So this is more like advice for other founders who are thinking of something because I love the idea of having an internal beta. I think a lot of founders forget that their team is actually one of their customers as well. And you won't retain great talent if they're just running around constantly and frustrated and trying to do their jobs, being asked to do more without the resources to do it. How do you keep yourself honest with something that you think is a really, really great idea? How many times are you iterating? What kind of parameters do you set for yourself to understand, okay, that we need to like stop this idea or we need to keep going? How do you think about that?
So before we kick off any project, we always have a written memo that outlines the success criteria. And there are quality gates and often usage or adoption gates that we need to hit before we move something to general availability, whether that's within the company and our employees or for customers. And, in the early days, when we were much smaller, we could get away with, this feels good enough. We're getting all the real time feedback. The team understands if something is a little half baked. We're now at a size with several hundred employees where it can really hurt our productivity if we put things out with our employees that aren't ready for a prime time because they all have a day job, right? Our sales reps, they're on demos all day. They don't have a ton of time to like learn a bunch of new products. And you can really undermine the trust that people have in your internal tools and in your processes if you don't put out stuff that's high quality and that works and that's been well considered. So we learned that lesson the hard way, and at this point put quite a lot of rigor around what does it take for a new tool to go into the hands of every employee.
I love that. So, like with AI, because some people are, as we know, really adopting it and they're going gung ho and they're doing it. And some people are a little timid and shy. And this probably comes up with you a lot based on who your buyers are, right? For your product and what that target customer is. But how do you go to market like with some of these AI products, right? That effectively could replace parts of their function, right?
Yeah.
But be seen as rather than them being job scared, right? Because you're basically empowering them to be better and do their job to be better. So you both win, right? But how do you tackle that? Because some people in this field are kind of like, great, we're better together, we're stronger together, let's innovate, let's collaborate. The other ones are not. So, how do you approach that? How does LP approach that carefully? Because you guys are innovating and you are constantly changing the way the game is played right now.
I would say that it is not my job to convince someone that they need AI in their lives. It is my job to help them solve a problem. And in many cases, AI is a very good solution to that problem and can be a 5 or 10 times better solution to that problem than what they're currently using or what they've used in the past. And so the way I would approach those conversations with clients, or the way that I would suggest or advise someone who is nervous about this, we talk a lot about this internally as well, is really, why did you get into this profession? What do you love about your job? And I did this exercise with my wife, who's a real estate agent. I asked her, like, what are all the things you love to do? And what are all the things that you have to do in your day to day? Because they're part of the job. When you look at that list for real estate agent, for a lot of them, the stuff they love to do, AI will never replace and is not very good at. It's the experience based, it's the judgment, it's the strategy, it's the negotiation, it's the client facing work, being out in the field, being with customers, and all the things that a lot of agents really don't love that much: admin work, the repetitive stuff, behind the scenes, keeping things organized, the minutia of doing sales, updating your CRM. That's the stuff where AI is brilliant. And I obviously believe in it very wholeheartedly. We put this whole business, pivoted it towards AI 2.5 years ago, because I felt that this is going to obviously revolutionize all industries, but it's going to be particularly useful for our industry, for real estate, because so much of that day-to-day work can be automated by AI. And I just talked to so many customers who they want that, paint that picture, and you show them that this is where these products are going. The fear goes away and they actually get excited. And so that's usually the conversation that I try to have with customers, and also internally. I mean, it's the same thing with our, onboarding managers. If you ask them, what do you love to do? It's talking to customers, understanding their vision, understanding what they want from their website, and then the creative aspect of actually creating that website. They don't love updating our project management tool and taking notes, doing a call. Like, that stuff's boring. No one wants to do that. And so I believe in this positive vision of AI, rather than just it's going to replace all of us and robots are going to do all the work. I don't buy that. That's not what I'm excited about. The efficiency side is interesting. What's far more interesting to me is, how can we allow more people to do the work that they love to do every day? And that's true for agents and it's true for tech employees.
Do you find that the customers that you work with require some level of education, not necessarily talking them into AI, but are there certain products, or maybe the question is like, how do you gauge whether or not a product is going to require education? Because there are certainly different levels of aptitude when it comes to technology, from brokerage to brokerage, agent to agent. At what point does an AI product require you to re-educate your entire customer base too?
It's definitely a big challenge, because the level of technical understanding and interest, frankly, in this technology is very different. I have some people who are just now starting to use ChatGPT, and they're asking, what can I do with it? How should I use this? And others who have set up their own OpenClaw and are building their own AI assistants, have their own open source setup for AI, right? Like, that's the difference in skill and understanding. And so how do you speak to both of these people? I think a lot about, how do we not just raise the ceiling, but raise the floor? So how do we make AI accessible to the person that's just getting started, and help them make it easy to see a little bit of benefit, enough benefit to lean in and want to learn more and want to do more. So I would say the best products, they don't feel like there's some complicated upfront work that you have to do at the moment, very, very early, so that you can see the benefit of what AI can do. And the products I like best, they're not actually positioning as like, here's an AI agent for you. They're positioning as, here's an outcome, here's a problem we solve, and then you use it and you see, wow, this is way better than the existing legacy tools that are out there. An example would be our CRM. It's an AI-native CRM. When you connect your email, instantly your contacts are classified and organized. And that first step, which usually is such a pain for most CRMs, right? You have to go, tag all your contacts. That's automated. And so the magic, you experience it right away. And that keeps you going. And then The next thing is the CRM starts to find opportunities in your network and lists them out for you and says, hey, here's someone you should reach out to, and here's what you should say. And it drafts the message for you, and all you have to do is click send, right? That's what gets someone to want more AI, is when they have those magical experiences.
One thing that I love about the CRM is because like your CRM does so much and makes it so easy in terms of making the agent like a true advisor, right? Which is what we're boiling down to. We want the agent to be able to do the best that they possibly can, which is be a true advisor to their client. So, based on what your CRM can do, and I'm seeing it all the time, do you think the average like SaaS CRM is going to be out and we're looking for one of these more comprehensive models like what you offer, in terms of eventually tracking, job changes, life events, buyers and sellers, all these things that you have one platform that is not just what we talk about, like holding data management and email. And I think really what people are going to have to do is they're going to have to dial it up a lot to be able to handle these experiences, right? Because it's not storage, it's actually experiences and quality conversations that people need to have.
I do think every single point solution and product that real estate professionals use in their day to day is being rebuilt and reinvented as an AI first tool. That doesn't mean that all of the legacy providers are going to get replaced. Some of them are making that shift. They're building those things themselves, but many will not. They've stopped innovating, or they've cut their R&D teams, and they're going to have a tough time. The way I see this playing out is you still have the system of record. And that's really how most people have used their traditional CRM. It's their system of record for their contacts, a source of truth. Where all of the innovation is happening now is the system of action. So what happens with those contacts? How can I get more value from those contacts? How can I engage with those contacts? How can that work that used to take tons of clicks and tons of work? How can that be more automated and easier? And it provides an opportunity for startups to build the system of action and then over time become the system of record. And so we are in the midst of this, enormous transformation. And the reason why, investors and VCs and new startups are so excited is because there's this opportunity to own the system of action. And it's an entry point or a wedge into something that would have been very, very difficult to compete on even a few years ago.
There's
I love it.
a concept in product development. Obviously, you know this, but this is more for people who are listening and who have not studied product development, but the idea of an S curve. I'm curious, in your opinion, have other companies who are trying to do what you're doing missed the opportunity to even jump in on the right spot on the S curve? Like, are they way too far behind to even like start now if they haven't started yet?
It depends on whether they have the team. So if a company just made the decision this year that we are in a period of innovation and therefore we need to innovate, otherwise we're in trouble, they're behind the ball. They're not going to catch up, right? And I see this, talking about specifically companies in our space, but in general, what's happened over the last 10 years is private equity bought up a lot of software solutions, point solutions. It gutted the engineering teams for cost reasons to optimize for EBITDA. And now they're in a tough situation because if you don't have the engineering talent, you're not going to innovate. If you don't innovate, you're not going to survive and you're not going to be around in 5 years. And no great AI engineer wants to go work for, some dying SaaS point solution. And so you're in a real pickle because you can't get the talent. Without the talent, you can't build the products. The incumbents that saw this coming and prepared are actually in a very, very good position. And there are some examples outside of our industry of companies that are doing this brilliantly. I look at what Shopify is doing. You look at, Ramp, I guess, is not really an incumbent, but you look at some of those large companies that are making this pivot brilliantly. They saw it coming. They're innovating. And so I feel very good about those SaaS companies that still have great talent and specifically great engineering talent. I'm worried about the ones that don't.
I'm gonna agree with that. All right, we're gonna kind of pivot a little bit into obviously AI search and top of the funnel, which is my favorite place to be. But they came out with like generative AI searches grew over 4,700%, obviously, between 2024 and 2025. So we have searches on ChatGPT, we have Gemini, we have everything else. And that basically is determining how every company in every industry gets found, right? So with now like over 40% of consumers trusting generative AI search, right? More than traditional advertising, So we're all pivoting right now. For the real estate agent, which we've talked about a little bit, what does winning actually look like in practice in 2026?
Yeah, it's a big topic and correctly a huge area of focus because already more than half of all consumers talk to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini before they make a purchase decision. And of course, they're going to talk to ChatGPT before deciding what real estate agent to go with. And so the question becomes, how can you position yourself and your brand to be viewed favorably in ChatGPT or any of the big LLMs? We spent a lot of time on that topic because we've always provided SEO services. And then more recently, we've added that to our offering. And a lot of our SEO experts have up-leveled and upskilled to also cover GEO. There are some misconceptions. So the first one I'll address is that SEO and GEO, AEO, whatever you want to call it, are totally different things. That's not the case. So 80% of the tactics are actually the same. So if you're ranking well on Google, that tends to also help you rank well on ChatGPT. And a lot of the underlying tactics, having a strong website, having unique experience-based data-driven content, having, all the technical optimizations in place, having third-party validation via backlinks or now brand mentions, even if they don't have a link. That's one of the things that's changed. All those things matter. Reviews, still hugely important. We've been talking about Google Business Profile for a very long time. Agents should be getting their reviews. It is even more important now because it's almost always something that the LLMs will reference when they look at whether they should recommend an agent or not. So that is super important. And then PR has become more important because of those third-party mentions. So if you can get featured in a local business journal, in any of the rankings, any third-party validation will really help you. There's a lot that feels new, but it's really a different version of what already existed and already mattered for SEO. That's my advice to agents is, focus on those best practices. There is a challenge that's worth noting because you mentioned, the measurement aspect of this. So how should agents, how do they know that this is working or not working? And it is harder for GEO than it is for SEO. For SEO, we have really good ways of looking at what keywords are you ranking for? How many clicks are you getting? How much traffic is that generating to your website? For ChatGPT, we don't really have clear data on the percentage of searches in ChatGPT that you're showing up for. We have some directional data. There's some ways to mimic that, but it's not perfectly accurate, and it differs between consumers. So if I search for the best real estate agent in LA, I might get a different answer than if Lauren searches for the best real estate agent in LA because ChatGPT knows so much about our lives. So it might connect me with someone who has a kind of personality that I'll connect with or who, serves like my type of, background. Whereas, so I think there's a lot there that's really interesting from a measurement perspective. And then the last thing that I'll say on this that's important to understand, Google showed 10 links and drove lots of traffic. ChatGPT usually shows maybe 1 to 3 options and doesn't drive very much traffic, but the traffic you get converts at extremely high rates. And so even though it is much less of a traffic driver from a lead gen perspective, it is very effective and very much worth investing in.
And one thing I'll say to that, because I agree with you, definitely earned media, but gone are the days where it's like, I'm the best era, where agents could just do anything and I'm the best, I'm the number one agent in Laguna Beach, I'm this or I'm that. And I'm like, prove it, right? Because with all of these LLMs, they want authentic content and they want to know that you've actually done it before and you've delivered, which is huge. And one of the things that I've seen, obviously, we've put a lot more into PR, for example, a lot more this year than we did in previous years, and writing that thought leadership content. One thing that I will say that some of our agents have been trying recently is what not to do. LLMs rank you as the expert of sometimes not what to do, because anybody can tell you 30 things to do, right? But doing that and writing not what not to do has gotten a lot of success. But what I often tell them is it's a journey. And you have to continue doing it. It is not something that you set and forget. And I feel like some people just want a quick fix and it's not going to happen.
I could not agree more. Refreshing your content makes a huge difference. LLMs, even more so than Google, care about the freshness of your content. So if you have some blog posts that you published 3 years ago, it's a good idea to republish them with today's date and add all of the most recent data in. That tends to really help keep the content visible within the LLMs.
Yeah.
I think too, it's an opportunity for the agents to brokerages and the platforms that educate their brokerage clients well, I think we'll get that message across of never has there been a better time for you to be authentic to who you are and who your ICP is, and helping them understand that, because this is the safest space that you've ever had in order to speak to those people, because then you will very a lot easier it will be a lot easier now to then attract those people if you're putting content out that will attract to them. So I think it's actually this we're still in the era of a little bit of fear when it comes to that, and how is it actually helping or going to help me as an agent. But I think this is an opportunity that they haven't had before, and so this is the moment to lean into that and really be true to who you are. Make sure that you're speaking to the content that actually excites you. That's going to actually drive more opportunity and more success your way.
And I think you're right because like if you're being honest of who you are, that tells people who you're not for. And it's just as important that people know that you're not for. So they're selectively opting out, not wasting your time, right? And that this is kind of like you brought up a good point, like with the your unique value proposition is what do you stand for when you're writing or you're doing topics? What are you passionate about? Who are you? And be authentic. And the right people, the right buyers and sellers are going to be drawn to that. And then the ones that aren't, exactly what you said, Shantae, don't fit your ICP anyway. So move on.
And it'll be easier. So many agents are that's what they get it they're I mean, I don't know as a CMO, I don't know how many agents I had met with who were like, "Oh my gosh, social media content," and then they shut down, or like blog content, they shut down. I'm like, "This is just how amazing is it that someone's now telling you, okay, go write what you like to write about, and then they'll come find you." That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Imagine
well
dating
said.
were like that.
There are riches and niches, and
Yeah.
most people
Well,
are
I
that's so
love that.
true.
afraid
So true. I
they're
love that.
afraid to pick the niche because they think they're going to lose out on business from the people that they're saying no to. But the reality is, when you make that choice and you focus on one particular client type or property type or specific area, your content just gets so much better because you're actually talking to that person and their particular pain points. You can't do that when you're trying to be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
All right.
love
Well,
that.
so speaking of, so I feel like this is a perfect opportunity to ask this question, which is you started at the luxury end of the market when you started luxury presence. So what did starting at the luxury end of the market give you in terms of data quality, brand permission, product feedback that going mass market from day one would have totally eliminated?
I feel like we started with the hardest segment in the market
Yes,
that
you
has
did.
You
by
did. You
far
really
the
did.
Confirm.
highest expectations, that is the most specific about what they need and has the absolute highest bar for quality. And in the beginning, that slowed us down a little bit because we had to meet that quality bar every time. And we had to be really thoughtful around what we put out, how we present our brand, the quality of our products. But then over time, as we moved a little bit into a broader market, things just got way easier because if you can meet the bar of, the can build the brand for Jade Mills, you can do it for everyone in the country. And we've really benefited from that. And culturally, it's become part of our DNA. There's a sense of pride in really doing excellent work. And when you're working for clients that are at the absolute pinnacle of their craft and the industry and the way that they service clients, that becomes inspiring for our team. And they don't want to meet that bar. We have the saying on our support team, of support put this in place a couple of years ago. We call it Ritzy service based on the Ritz. And so people have this connection to really great service, really quality work. And so I think we owe a lot of that to our beginnings in the luxury space.
That is a really good answer. From working with you, what I love is you do give that Ritz-Carlton experience, so you're open to feedback. You always try to create the best experiences, and you guys are always one step ahead of us, like one step ahead of me, which is sometimes hard to do, to be honest. But the fact that you guys are able to do that, but if anything, if you want to sit here and you ever want to come back and you're like, "Hey, let's explore this together," or "How do we enhance this experience?" That level of curiosity, I think, is critical. Is what I love is you have to always be curious, and your team is always curious of how do we make it better? It's great, but how do we improve? What do we do this? What do we do about that? And that's crucial.
Yeah, that feedback really is everything, and it's how you build something great. It's not so much how you fail, but how you recover. And Yeah, as any organization, we're far from perfect, and we're learning every day from our customers. We get all of our good feedback comes from customers directly. There's that sense of pride that I don't think we would have had we started in, let's say, a low end part of the market.
Love it. Okay, are we ready for like some fun, well, fire round questions? I love fire round questions. They're
Let's
my
do it.
favorite. So
Let's do it.
we'll start with some and then we'll get into the personal ones. But which SaaS company, and you already mentioned a few, outside of real estate is executing digital transformation in a way you wish you had built or thought of?
Intercom has
Yeah.
been incredibly impressive. They built their core business, then they launched Fin, which is now one of the fastest growing AI support tools. And to pull that off as a SaaS incumbent is really impressive.
Love it. Love it.
But what AI tool do you use personally every day that most CEOs have not found yet?
My setup is very simple. Whisperflow plus Claude. You can see me walking around my neighborhood, talking into my phone whenever I need to write a memo or make a strategic decision. Whisperflow, Claude and I are best friends.
I love it.
I love Whisperflow, by the way. I don't know what I did without it. It has made my life so much easier over the past few weeks. So I love that. Okay, complete this sentence. The prop tech companies that do not move on this in the next 18 months will like.
Slowly slide into irrelevance.
I love that. I love that.
What's the most expensive lesson luxury presence learned through digital transformation that you would share for free today?
That's a good one. I like that question. Thinking about it.
You have to centralize the AI tooling selection and have a real promoter internally to be able to raise the floor across your company.
That's not you. You mean
Mm, ideally it starts with the CEO. And if you don't have backing from a board and the CEO, it is very, very hard to do this kind of transformation.
It's extremely hard. And I think also, like you said, it's having the team that is there and it's also having the advocates for you at the same time. And that central team has to be absolutely amazing because you're only as good as your team. And if that team is not dialed in, committed at the best that you will do, you will be leading that thing by yourself. And it's really hard.
yeah, and probably won't succeed because
Been
not
there.
one person can do it all.
No,
Yeah.
that's you have, the best of breed approach on your team. Is the human, and I already know what you're going to say, but you're going to elaborate on this, but is the human in the loop a permanent feature of AI? Like we're always going to have humans in terms of allowing the agents to be the strategic advisor that we talked about, or a bridge to something bigger?
For experience-based work that requires taste and judgment, it is a permanent solution and the one that makes the most sense. For data-driven work and quality assurance, where the human is simply trying to prevent errors, I think it's temporary and AI will get better at that than the human solutions.
I agree with you on that 100%. Okay, let's go into the fun ones.
All right. So this is usually my segment. Lauren does all the serious ones. Okay, so I'm sure every time you have a new person who joins your team, there's some kind of icebreaker question. So today we're going to do two truths and a lie.
Okay.
All
And we
right.
all have to answer these, by the way.
We all have to do it and then we all have to guess.
All of us.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fun. I speak 4 languages. I know how to juggle 3 balls.
Okay.
My nickname in high school was Dirk's cousin.
Oh my gosh, this is,
That last one's very specific.
I know.
I'm going to say juggle.
That is actually the
I
truth.
was,
That is? What?
Yeah, yeah. I don't speak 4 languages.
Okay, well, how many do you speak?
3.
I thought you were going to be like, I speak 10.
Yeah, I wish.
when did the juggling come into play?
As a kid, I just liked it. I always liked the circus, and I learned
That
to
is
juggle.
so cool. What's
That
your
is
favorite circus you've ever been to?
amazing.
I used to go. I mean, back in Germany, growing up, there was a circus that came to town every 6 months, and it was always my favorite thing. Yeah, I haven't been back in a while.
All right, Lauren, what's yours?
So I have 3. I've sang on Broadway. I have never broken a bone. And I am afraid of scorpions.
I'll go with
Broken-
number 2. You've never broken a
Yeah.
bone.
How did you guys get that right? Seriously.
Because if you said the Broadway thing and it wasn't true, that'd be sad because you love to sing.
I know that would be kind of like depressing, right?
What makes you afraid of scorpions?
So what made me afraid is my
We're talking about the animal,
sister-in-law.
not the 80s hair band, right?
Yeah.
We're not on the
Okay,
80s
great.
hair bands.
Okay.
Okay, we're not on that. So my sister-in-law is a teacher and they had it as a class pet and they always had to bring it home in like the plastic tank and she put it on top of her piano in the living room. Okay. So one time she brought it home and it got out and they've stung before. I have never been stung, but I know people that have been stung. And I had fallen asleep on the couch and I wake up and it is right here on me, sitting right there, like
That's
black,
terrifying.
black scorpion. So I literally say that I will live nowhere where scorpions are prominent. So when we talk about like Arizona or the desert or that's but yeah, so
Wow.
there was my thing
That's
on
wild.
scorpions. Yeah.
All right.
All right, girl, you're next.
Okay. All right. Mine are I danced with the Rockettes. When I was little, I did German books on tape for extra money. And I did 2 triathlons.
I'll pick the second one. German books on tape.
Wait a
Lauren,
minute.
what's
I'm picking the triathlons, and the only reason I'm picking the triathlons is because I can't picture you swimming in the ocean. I know you could do it. I just don't picture you wanting to swim in the ocean.
Yeah, so true. I have a fear of swimming in open water, which is why I made myself do it twice. Yeah.
Very impressive.
My God, I
Right.
love
My lie is that I
that.
did not dance with the Rockettes.
Although that would have been a really good one too.
Yeah.
And what was the German
Okay, so
reading?
meine Großeltern sind aus Deutschland. So I did I try to have this moment with Lauren on every episode where I say something where she's like, "How do I not know that?"
Working its way up.
So yeah, when I was little, there was a company who paid me. There were like a bunch of children's books in German and English, and they needed someone who could do the English and the German. And so I did that, and then I got extra spending money.
Very cool.
Random.
Super.
Love this so much. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. You learned more about AI, you learned more about digital transformation, and you definitely learned more about the three of us. So tune in, follow us, and we will catch you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.